Yes, good morning, everyone, all the students of MA ELT. Hope and pray you have been keeping well and keeping safe and secure. I wish you the very best for not only just for your health and well-being, also for your studies. And you know very well that the only option left for us is this online teaching or discussion. So please try to make the best of it. As I told you in the opening session, all these keywords related to this particular unit which I have been discussing with you, starting from this discourse, text, then what is discourse analysis, what is textual analysis, what are its different strategies of creating a text, starting with deixis, parallelism, cohesion, coherence, ellipsis. We discuss some of these. So it is you are very fortunate that all this material is available on online. You just key in these keywords. For example, ellipsis, you will find plenty of material, and you need not all the material. Just get familiar with the concept. What does ellipsis mean? What does deixis mean? What does parallelism mean? What does this cohesion and coherence mean? So please make the best use of this plenty of material which is available. This morning I propose to discuss with you one important topic of this unit which I had not discussed so far, and with this your entire unit will be covered. And this is what I told you at the beginning. A very important component of this particular unit is connectives. They are called connectives, connectors, linkers. So whatever the name, the more important is the concept. No text, listen carefully, no text can come into existence without connectives. Even at the level of a sentence, within a sentence we use so many connectives. And then at the level of a paragraph, at the level of a text, this is inevitable. Very briefly speaking, connectives, they are of three main categories: lexical, grammatical, semantic, or rhetorical, whatever name you give it. Then there are time and place connectives, but these connectives, they are like the threads in a text, and a text cannot come into existence. We cannot have a meaningful text without these connectives. So you should have a very clear idea at the conceptual level what are the connectives and what function, what role they perform. So as you can see here, very briefly speaking, to make life simple for you, I will tell you that essentially, broadly speaking, there are only three connectives. What are these? Number one is and, number two or, number three but. Then there are so many variations, but essentially these are the three main connectives, and they perform so many functions which we will briefly see. Is this clear to you? Connectives, different categories, different labels used for that, but it comes down to this, that there are three main major connectives. What are they? And, or, and, but. Okay, we'll start with and. And looks like a very simple, small word, but now we'll just see how many functions, useful functions, important functions it performs, and I will use certain terms for that and try to get a clear idea. Right. And the first important function performed by and is listing. What does listing means? At one level it means enumeration, and at the other level it means addition, and when we say addition it means reinforcement and equation. So just look here. One category of the function of and is listing, And under listing, we have so many things: enumeration, addition, reinforcement, and equation. Right. So listing, as I said, is standing for enumeration. Enumeration, what does enumeration mean? The first point, enumeration. Enumeration means a cataloging, a listing of what is being said, and they are, this enumeration is used to make things clear. What are the markers? What are the expressions? The examples of enumeration or listing, please jot down. First, moreover, furthermore, finally, one, two, three, firstly, secondly, thirdly, above all, last but not least, first and foremost, first and most importantly, to begin with, to conclude, next, afterwards, lastly. All these expressions, they signify listing, enumeration, one thing following another. Is this clear to you? The next one is addition, ADDITION, and performs the role of addition. Addition means adding to what has been previously said. Addition may be in the form of reinforcement, emphasizing something. And we use these expressions for confirming something. And what are these expressions? What are the examples? Also, again, further, what is more, then, in addition, besides, above all, as well as. And please don't get confused by the overlapping. There might be some overlapping, but that's natural. We can't help it. The important point is that and has many synonyms, which I just mentioned to you, and they perform the role of addition, addition in the sense of confirmation. The next point is equation. Equation means when we want to bring out similarity between the two subjects, between the two ideas, concepts, topics, whatever. And what are the examples? Equally, likewise, similarly, correspondingly, in the same way. So this was one major function of and, which is listing. And under listing, we discussed enumeration, addition, reinforcement, equation. Now I pass on to the second major function of and, that is transition. Transition, as the word indicates, moving from one stage to another, both chronologically and at the mental level. Transition, what does it mean? It means a new stage in the sequence of thought. What are the expressions? What are the examples indicative of transition? Now, with reference to, or with regard to, regarding, or sometimes we use a whole phrase. Let us now turn to this and that. As to, by the way, talking about this, that reminds me, all these expressions are about transition. Next one is, next major function of and is summation. Summation is coming from the word sum, indicating a generalization of summing up of what has been said earlier. What are the examples? What are the expressions used for summation? In conclusion, to conclude, to sum up, in brief, to summarize, overall, then, therefore, thus. So it is just sheer common sense. We all use these expressions day in, day out, and even without thinking, these come naturally to us. But at the grammatical level, we have to be clear that these perform this function of summation. Another important function performed by and is what we call in grammatical terms as apposition. APPOSITION, apposition, to refer back to sentences or to parallel or related sentences. And I will give you the example and then you will follow what does apposition mean. Namely, in other words, rather, as follows. For example, for instance, including this, especially, particularly, mainly. So all these expressions, they since these refer to the position, so they fall under the category of opposition. Next one is under the head S, under the head N, we have another category, what we call as result. Result expresses the consequence of what was said before, and what are the examples? Therefore, as a result, accordingly, consequently, because of this, hence, for this reason. Now, the last one under this category is inference. Inference is when we get a result, when we deduce, when we derive, when we reach a conclusion, that's technically known as inference. Inference is the result, but result in the sense of arriving at that result, deriving that, that is a deduction from what is said earlier. So, what are the words for that? In other words, in that case, otherwise, the conclusion is, all these are, the expressions are markers of what we say inference. So, is this clear to you? And performs these major roles. One is listing. Under listing, we have enumeration, addition, reinforcement, equation. That was the first category. The second category is transition. The third category is summation. The fourth category is opposition. The fifth category is result. And the sixth last category, which we just discussed, is inference. Now, we pass on to the second connective, that is or. Or once again looks so innocuous, such a small word, but it performs so many functions. Basically, two main functions. One is reformulation and the other is replacement. Reformulation, it means to express the same thing in another way, put it otherwise, and the expression used for that is better, rather. In other words, in that case, to put it more simply, you must have first class, I'm giving you an example, you must have first class marks for admission to a foreign university. To put it otherwise, you need very good grade, or you should have a good grade, because in some institutions, first class, second class is not awarded, just grades are there. So, whether it is grade, whether it is first class, you should have that for admission. So, you get it, reformulation. The other main function performed by or is what we say replacement, and you know very well either or, that is to indicate an alternative. So, the markers for that are alternatively, better. On the other hand, the alternative is at the other end of the scale. All these expressions, they indicate the alternative, more than one option. Is this clear to you? Or performing the two main functions. One is reformulation and the other is replacement. The third connective, and once again very useful and highly relevant for textual analysis, for the creation of text, what we call as but. But has two main functions. One is contrast. Contrast is when we are comparing A with B, and for that we use the expression instead, conversely, on the contrary, to the contrary, by way of contrast, in comparison. On the other hand, all these words, they are used in a text to indicate contrast, and as I said, contrast is a very common recurrent feature of a text. Next is finally the second main function performed by but is what we call as concession. Concession means to accept something and to, but at the same time to indicate the unexpected, surprising nature of what is said earlier. He is young yet so hardworking and diligent. So, this yet is an example of concession. We are conceding a point. To be young, one does not expect him to be so diligent, but he is. So when I say concession, it means to concede, to accept a point. To accept which point? To accept something surprising, unexpected in view of what is said earlier. What are the expressions for that? Else, however, nevertheless, nonetheless, notwithstanding, still, yet, for all that, at the same time, all the same, though, or although. These are the expressions which we use for indicating concession. So is this clear to you? Let me sum it up. The connectives, they are basically three: and, or, but, and they perform a variety of functions which I just mentioned to you. So you see here, connectors, they bring out different relationships within a sentence and among the sentences, whether it is contrast, whether it is result, whether it is difference, whether it is opposition, whether it is reformulation, whether it is concession. These are what we say. These are the functions performed by that, and we discussed also enumeration, addition, transition, summation. Is this clear to you? This is the main point about. So this connectives are like this putting together positives and negatives and then reaching a conclusion. He is my friend, yet I have to warn you against him. So this yet is, first statement is friend, positive, next is to warn, yet I have to warn, that's negative. And so this is how language or text works. Is this clear to you? And then a very obvious point, there are so many place and time connectives, and these are like threads in a narrative, in a description. Without these markers, these place and time connectives, there cannot be any narration, there cannot be any chronology. So these indicate locational, related to location, and temporal. Temporal means related to time. So these connections are there. Place. What are the place connectives? You can think for yourself, hundreds of them, whether it is here, there, nearby, across, most of the prepositions afterwards. Meanwhile, then all these are indicatives of place. Then what about time connectives? Once again, literally dozens of these and everyday life, and we unconsciously, unthinkingly use them, because without that we cannot express our mind. But I will give you the example of the time connectives. What are the time connectives? Earlier, former, preceding, previous, later, already, as, yet, before, first, then, until now, at present, following, next, again, immediately, since, all these things. So once again, you may find that most of these, they appear also under the category of what I said, lexical connectives, that's and, are, but don't be confused, because it depends upon the context. In each context they perform different functions. So is this clear to you? Connectives, they are lexical connectives and are, but, then there are place and time connectives. And now we pass on to the last category, that is semantic connectives. I will just give you a list of these and with brief expressions. These are also known as semantic or conceptual connectives. What are these? Generalization. There are many hardworking persons in the world. Our country owes its prosperity to them. Generalization. Next is particularization. There are 10 cricket playing nations in the world. These are Australia, England, West Indies, India, Pakistan, and so on. Particularization. 10, which 10? I have mentioned their names. So the first one is generalization, next is particularization. Then exemplification. There are 10 cricket playing countries in the world, and then I give the examples of these 10 countries. So you see there's some overlapping. Exemplification. There are beasts in the in West Bengal forest region. For example, lion, leopard. So these are examples. Then substantiation. What does substantiation means? To support your statement with facts. There is much poverty in Asia. 40% of Asians, they lead life below poverty line. This is substantiation. I have provided substance to my statement with a fact. Or substantiation could be with the help of arguments. There are 5 reasons why you should not drink. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's also substantiation. Is this clear to you? Next one is restatement, what we just discussed, reformulation. It is hot, rather it is getting scorchingly hot. So when we rephrase our statement, reformulation, elaboration. I have 3 interesting friends. One of them is fond of cracking jokes. The other is very dear to me for his hobbies. So I am, and look here, this is something very interesting. At one level it is substantiation, at another level it is particularization, at another level it is exemplification, but essentially it is elaboration. What I have just said, I have 3 interesting friends, and now I am providing the details, so that is elaboration. Next is qualification. Qualification is in the same sense as, same meaning as concession. When we make a statement, positive statement, and qualify it with a negative one, we make a negative statement but qualify it with a positive one. I don't like her, but she is very good at playing music. She is antisocial but highly talented. So you see here, positives and negatives, that's what is qualification. And then refutation. At times we use many expressions for contradicting, for negating what is said earlier. He accused me of stealing, but I denied it. I told that I was not present at that time. So this is refutation with the help of but. Then another conceptual narrative is chronological narrative. In 1985, I did this. In 1990, I joined this university. In 2000, I went to States. In 2003, my first son was born. So this is with reference to chronology. I am describing something. So this is what we say, chronologization or chronological narrative. Next one is description. Do this, then that, then this, then that. Description. Not chronology, but stepwise. So this is description. Then offering solution, another conceptual connective. If you don't have any money for studying abroad, there are following options: bank loan, scholarships, help from friends and family. So you see here, this is offering solution. And contrast and summarization, I have already discussed under the head of and enumeration. So you see, these are the conceptual connectives. These also play an important role in both creating text and in analyzing text. So I hope this description should be helpful, useful to you. What are the connectives? What are their functions? What are their types? What are their different categories? I hope things are clear to you. And if you have any query, if you want further details, please feel free to contact me at Mr. Saif, your class fellow. He has got my mobile number, my email. So please, you're most welcome to contact me for any further detail, for any query, any clarification. So this is just a brief introduction to this topic, that's connectives. And as I said, you have such a valuable resource in terms of online material. Uh, Go to that, and I wish you the best. See you soon. Thank you.